Welcome to the Celestial Saga channel. They thought we were just primitive creatures who had barely left their planet. But we decided to show them what real war means. What made an entire empire tremble before humanity? Watch to the end to find out. Hi, Admiral. We've just received another transmission from the human resistance. Sub-Commander Marcus Rylan reported, his secondary breathing gills fluttering with nervous energy. Damien Thorne, slouching in his command chair, turned toward the holographic display, irritated. These humans, he muttered under his breath, insignificant creatures who barely managed to reach their moon, and yet they have the audacity to send increasingly bold messages ever since the Zanari Empire claimed Earth as its newest mining colony. Display it on the screen, Damien Thorne ordered, expecting another pitiful plea for mercy. But this message was nearly laughable in its brevity. Since you chose war, let us show you how it's done. Finn Larsson's mocking laughter echoed throughout the command bridge of the ZZ's Invincible, making several junior officers jump. These humans, he scoffed, believing they can challenge the power of our empire with their crude weapons and chemical rockets. A few nervous chuckles spread among the bridge crew, but Sub-Commander Marcus Rylan remained tense. Sir, he said, our initial analysis may have missed something. Reports from our ground forces indicate what exactly? Damien Thorne snapped, rising to his full height of 3 meters. That they've destroyed a few scout drones, maybe disabled a mining operation or two. The humans are nothing but pests, and we will treat them as such. Just as if in response to Damien Thorne's dismissal, the ship's warning systems blared to life. Red emergency lights flooded the bridge, casting a menacing glow. Multiple incoming signatures, shouted the sensor officer, his tentacles writhing in confusion. They're everywhere! Damien Thorne rushed to the tactical display, his 4 eyes widening in shock. Hundreds of small craft had materialized seemingly out of nowhere, emerging from artificial gravitational distortions around their fleet. Impossible, Damien Thorne whispered, still unable to comprehend. Their technology was evaluated at level 2. They shouldn't have gravity manipulation for at least another century. The first explosion shook the ZZ's Invincible before anyone had time to react. A human vessel, no larger than a Zentaur shuttle, had somehow pierced their supposedly impenetrable shields. Sir, Marcus Rylan urgently called out, they're using some sort of quantum tunneling technology. Our shields are useless. Another more intense explosion rocked the ship. Damien Thorne watched in horror as the Dreadnought Zessan, the pride of the Zanari Navy, was split in two, as easily as if it were a fruit crushed underfoot by a careless child. All ships form battle positions, Damien Thorne bellowed, but it was already too late. The humans' assault was nothing like anything in the Empire's tactical data. Their ships moved in unpredictable ways, attacking from impossible angles, materializing and vanishing at will. Through the chaos, another transmission cut through their communications. Lesson 1. Never judge a species by their public space program. The voice belonged to Admiral Olivia Ashford of the United Earth Defense Force, a name Damien Thorne would come to know well in the cycles that followed. Shields at critical failure, reported the defensive systems officer, their voice cracking with panic. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Damien Thorne could only watch, powerless, as his fleet, the one he had led for over 30 cycles, was torn apart by what he had once dismissed as primitive apes. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were systematically dismantling everything the Zanari Empire had sent to Earth. Sir, we must retreat, Marcus Rylan pleaded, gripping Damien Thorne's arm desperately. We've lost 40% of the fleet in less than 10 minutes. 40%? The number hit Damien Thorne like a physical blow. Never before had any species inflicted such losses on the Empire, let alone in a single engagement. As the order to retreat was issued, one final message arrived, accompanied by the image of Admiral Olivia Ashford herself. She looked almost serene, dressed in a simple blue uniform that stood in stark contrast to the ornate armor of the Zanari military. Next time you decide to invade a species, she said with a slight smile, you might want to check if their peaceful appearance is by choice rather than necessity. We'll give you some time to think about that. Ashford out. The remnants of Damien Thorne's fleet limped away from Earth's orbit, leaving behind the debris of their finest ships and the shattered pride of their military. As they prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Damien Thorne felt an overwhelming sense of dread. This wasn't just a defeat, it marked the beginning of something far worse. The humans hadn't simply defended themselves. They had sent a clear message to the entire galaxy. Damien Thorne had a sinking feeling that he would be the one to deliver this disastrous news to the Emperor. "Sub-Commander," Damien Thorne said quietly, as Earth faded from their view screens, "prepare a full report and include a personal resignation with it." The war had only just begun, and Damien Thorne had already lost the first battle. Somehow, he knew this wouldn't be the last defeat the Zanari Empire would suffer at the hands of these so-called primitive humans. The Imperial War Chamber on Zentar Prime hummed with tension as 12 of the Empire's top military commanders gathered around the holographic tactical display. The chamber, vast and ancient with its towering crystal spires and battle-worn markings, had witnessed countless strategy sessions over millennia, but none quite like this. 40% of our most advanced fleet? Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone spat the words with venom, his royal purple skin turning a deep crimson. Lost to a species that hasn't even colonized their own solar system? The hologram displayed the devastation near Earth in painful detail, showing ships worth trillions of credits destroyed within minutes by vessels that appeared from nowhere. "Perhaps," Commander Evelyn Winters' voice rang out, carrying the weight of centuries of tactical experience. "This was our mistake." She stood, adjusting her cybernetic eye, which glowed with worry. "We assumed their lack of colonial expansion meant technological inferiority." "Watch your tone, Evelyn Winters," War Minister Sebastian Hale growled. "Your caution is well known, some might say too well known." Evelyn Winters' mechanical hand clenched, the only sign of her growing frustration. "My caution has saved more Zanari lives than your reckless boldness, Minister, and right now, caution is exactly what we need." She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on one of the human ships. "Look at their design. No wasted space, no unnecessary ornamentation. Pure functionality. These aren't the ships of a species trying to prove themselves. These are the weapons of a civilization that chose to appear weak." "Impossible!" shouted one of the younger commanders. "Our intelligence networks would have detected them." "Would they?" Evelyn Winters cut him off, pulling up another hologram. "According to our latest analysis, the humans have been using quantum-entangled communications for at least a decade. Our networks couldn't detect them because we were searching for standard subspace transmissions." The room fell silent. Quantum entanglement had been purely theoretical, even for the Zanari. The fact that the humans had not only mastered it but kept it hidden was both terrifying and impressive. "There's more," Evelyn Winters continued, her cybernetic eye glowing even brighter. "Analysis of their attack patterns suggests they've been running combat simulations against our exact fleet configurations for years. They knew exactly where to strike." Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone leaned forward, his scales shifting to a more thoughtful blue. "How do they know? Our fleet formations are state secrets." "Because," Evelyn Winters said softly, "we've been broadcasting them to anyone with the right technology to observe," Evelyn Winters continued. "Our quantum shielding, which we once thought impenetrable, has been leaking information for years. The humans didn't just get lucky, they've been studying us, planning, and waiting." War Minister Garrett Holt slammed his fist onto the table. "Then we hit them with everything, full invasion fleet," he shouted. "That would be suicide," Evelyn Winters countered flatly. "You're still seeing them as primitive beings who gotten a lucky shot. These humans," she paused, carefully choosing her words, "they're not just fighting a war, they're performing an art. They've spent their entire history perfecting it." She pulled up historical data from Earth. "Look at their military history. Endless conflicts, evolving strategies constantly. While we fought large-scale wars once every few centuries, they were battling daily, yearly, constantly. We've been perfecting peace, Minister, while they've been perfecting war." "What do you suggest then?" Liam Blackstone asked, his tone already knowing he wouldn't like her response. "We negotiate while we still can." Evelyn Winters' words caused a stir in the chamber, but she continued over the rising shouts. "Because right now, they're showing restraint. That attack, it was a warning shot. They could have obliterated our entire fleet, but they chose to let us retreat. Ask yourselves why." The room fell silent, her words sinking in. Finally, War Minister Garrett Holt spoke, his voice unusually subdued. "You believe they're giving us a chance to withdraw?" "No," Evelyn Winters corrected him. "They're giving us a chance to understand exactly what we've started. And if we don't take it..." She let the thought hang in the air. Just then, every personal communicator buzzed simultaneously. A new message from Earth had been broadcast across every frequency, encrypted with their own military codes. The War Council exchanged looks, the weight of their situation settling in. They hadn't just awakened a sleeping giant. They had provoked a species that had turned war into a science, peace into a facade, and patience into a weapon. And now, time was running out. Battle stations, all ships, combat formation Delta. Commander Evelyn Winters watched as 5,000 Zari warships reformed into their most imposing attack pattern. Surely, she thought, even the humans would see reason when confronted with such overwhelming force. But just as the fleet was ready, the sensor officer called out, "Multiple spatial distortions detected, similar signatures to the Earth attack." Evelyn Winters' cybernetic eye zoomed in on the anomalies. "All ships, shields to maximum," she ordered. But before she could finish her command, chaos erupted. Human ships didn't just appear from the distortions. They erupted like a volcanic blast. But these weren't the small attack crafts from before. These were warships, massive vessels that could rival Zanari dreadnoughts in size. "By the first Emperor," War Minister Garrett Holt shouted from his command ship, "those aren't military vessels. They're converted mining ships." He was right. The humans had taken their deep space mining equipment and repurposed it into weapons of war. Where there had once been mineral extraction beams, there were now gravitational lance cannons. Asteroid-crushing tools had been transformed into shield-piercing weaponry. "All ships open fire," Garrett Holt ordered, his voice crackling with barely contained panic. The void was suddenly ablaze with energy as 5,000 Zanari ships unleashed their arsenal. The humans didn't even try to dodge. Instead, their ships maneuvered at impossible angles, and Zentar fire simply vanished into thin air. "Wait," Evelyn Winters realized with growing horror. "They're using micro-wormholes. They're redirecting our fire back at us." Sure enough, Zentar ships began exploding as their own energy weapons shot back at them from tiny spatial rifts at point-blank range. But that was just the beginning. The human mining ships initiated their true attack. Gravitational fields twisted and warped around the Zanari fleet, crushing ships like empty ration containers, while others were torn apart by sheer gravitational forces. "Break formation," Evelyn Winters commanded. "Scatter and regroup. Don't let them predict our movements." But the humans had anticipated this too. As the Zentar fleet broke apart, hundreds of smaller crafts emerged from hidden positions in nearby asteroid fields. These weren't mining vessels. They were sleek, deadly military ships, clearly designed for one purpose: war. Captain Maxwell Blake's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Thanks for breaking up into smaller groups. Makes our job much easier." The human strike crafts attacked with a precision that bordered on precognition. They seemed to know exactly where each Zanari ship would be, targeting engines, weapons, and command centers with surgical accuracy. "How?" Garrett Holt demanded. "How are they predicting our every move?" "Because," Evelyn Winters replied grimly, "they've been watching us for decades. Every training exercise, every patrol pattern, every standard response. They've studied it all." A massive explosion rocked her ship as a human vessel phased through their shields, deposited what looked like a simple metal container, and phased out again. The container exploded, but instead of releasing conventional energy, it unleashed a quantum cascade that shut down every system on 3 nearby Zanari cruisers. "Status report," Evelyn Winters barked. "We've lost 40% of the fleet," her tactical officer responded, voice shaking. "Another 30% is heavily damaged. The humans, they're pushing the remaining ships into a kill zone." Evelyn Winters was right. The converted mining ships had created a massive gravitational web, while the military vessels systematically herded the Zanari fleet into it. It was like watching predators guiding their prey into a trap. Then came the final blow. A new ship emerged from hyperspace, larger than anything they had seen before. Its hull bore the markings of the United Earth Defense Force and a name, USREM Sol. Admiral Olivia Ashford's voice, now familiar to every Zanari commander, echoed through their calls. "You know what's truly fascinating about humans?" she said. "We turned mining tools into weapons because we couldn't bear to waste resources building dedicated warships. Imagine what we can do with a vessel actually designed for war." The USREM Sol's hull split open like a blooming flower, revealing what appeared to be a miniature sun at its core. Evelyn Winters' sensors screamed a warning just seconds before the weapon fired. A beam of concentrated stellar plasma, hot enough to rival a star's core, shot out, wherever it touched Zanari ships. They simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. Full retreat, Garrett Holt's voice cracked with fear. All ships, emergency hyperspace jump. But the humans weren't finished with their demonstration. As the remaining Zanari ships tried to flee, they found their hyperspace drives would not engage. Somehow, the humans had seeded the entire battlefield with hyperspace inhibitors. "Don't worry," Olivia Ashford's voice came again, almost gentle this time. "We'll let you leave, but first, watch carefully." The Yusram Sol fired again, this time at an empty section of space. The stellar lance carved a message in burning plasma, visible from every ship in the sector. This was only our first fleet. When the hyperspace inhibitors finally deactivated, less than 20% of the Zanari armada remained to carry that message home. As Evelyn Winter's damaged ship limped away from the battlefield, she couldn't help but smile grimly at the elegance of the humans' strategy. The humans hadn't simply won a battle. They had staged an entire performance, a demonstration so overwhelming that even the fiercest warhawks within the Empire would have to admit the truth. The Zanari Empire hadn't started a war. They had unwittingly signed up for a lesson in humility, delivered by masters who had transformed warfare into an art form. The message arrived on every screen, communications device, and personal tablet across the Zanari Empire simultaneously. There was no encryption that could block it, no firewall strong enough to prevent it. Even the Emperor's most secure private quantum terminal displayed it. The message was simple and mocking. "Roses are red, violets are blue. We've mapped your whole empire and we're coming for you." Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone stared at the childish rhyme, his scales shifting in hue as a wave of conflicting emotions surged within him. "How many systems have reported receiving this?" he demanded, his voice tight. "All of them," Evelyn Winters replied, her cybernetic eye processing the incoming data streams. "Every colony, every outpost, every mining operation, even our deep cover intelligence stations that weren't supposed to exist." The humans had initiated a psychological warfare campaign, and it had begun with a bang. At first it seemed like a joke. Nursery rhymes, silly poems, and children's songs broadcast across vast stretches of space. But then came the coordinates. "Sir," a communications officer spoke up, "another transmission is incoming. This one's different." A string of numbers appeared on the screen, followed by a chilling message. "Oops, look what we found in your backyard." Evelyn Winter's hand clenched around her datapad, crushing it as she realized what the numbers meant. "Those are the exact coordinates of every single one of our cloaked surveillance satellites," she muttered, her voice thick with disbelief. "The ones we use to monitor our own population." "How did they—" Liam Blackstone began, but Evelyn Winters cut him off. "They've been in our systems for years. Every encrypted message, every classified file. We thought we were gathering intelligence on them, but they've been gathering it on us." The next transmission solidified their worst fears with brutal clarity. Personal messages began to flash across the official screens, private conversations, secretive deals, hidden accounts. The humans weren't just targeting the Empire's military. They were threatening to expose its very foundation. "Commander!" a junior officer stammered, approaching with panic in his voice. "We intercepted. Well, they wanted us to intercept this." The hologram displayed what appeared to be a human military strategy session. Admiral Olivia Ashford stood before her officers, exuding confidence as she outlined her plans. "Phase 1 is complete," she announced calmly. "The Zanari now know we can reach anywhere in their empire. Phase 2, show them we already have." The room erupted in chatter as live feeds began showing human agents across Zanari space, pulling off their disguises. The barista who served Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone's morning stimulant, human infiltrator, the maintenance worker who cleaned War Minister Garrett Holt's private chamber. Another one. "They've been here all along," Evelyn Winters whispered, her voice barely audible. "Watching, learning, building networks." Panic spread like wildfire as more revelations followed. Star charts showing classified Zanari military installations, engineering plans for their most advanced weapons, cultural analyses so precise that they predicted civil unrest with unsettling accuracy. "Sir," another officer shouted, "the humans are broadcasting directly to our civilian population on billions of screens across the Empire." Humans appeared on screens in perfect Zanari, explaining to the civilians exactly how their government had been deceiving them for generations. They showed proof of embezzled funds, engineered food shortages used to control the population, and wars started for profit. This isn't just a war, Evelyn Winters realized in horror. This is a surgical strike. They're not trying to destroy us, they're dismantling us piece by piece. The final transmission arrived directly from Admiral Olivia Ashford. The message, broadcast on every frequency, was short and devastating. Your empire was built on lies, sustained by fear, and held together by corruption. We didn't need to defeat your military. We just needed to show your people the truth. You have 24 hours to begin systematic reforms, or we release everything. And trust me, what you've seen so far, that's only the beginning. Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone slumped in his chair, his scales paling with the weight of defeat. How do we fight an enemy that knows us better than we know ourselves? Evelyn Winters' cybernetic eye flickered as she analyzed their situation. We don't, she replied flatly. We do exactly what they want, because they're not trying to conquer us. They're forcing us to fix ourselves. Just as she finished speaking, another message arrived. P.S. Commander Evelyn Winters, we've really enjoyed reading your papers on ethical military leadership. Would you be interested in heading up the Reform Committee? The Zanari High Council chamber fell into stunned silence as the hologram of Admiral Olivia Ashford materialized before them, not as a simple transmission, but as a fully interactive projection, one that their sensors couldn't even detect. Your 24 hours are up, she said, her voice calm but with an unmistakable edge. I see you've chosen pride over survival. Very well, let me show you exactly what you're up against. The walls of the chamber disappeared, replaced by the vastness of space. The council members found themselves floating, surrounded by ships. Not hundreds, not thousands, but millions. Welcome to humanity's real fleet, Olivia Ashford said, her voice a chilling whisper. What you've seen so far? That was our civilian auxiliary force. These are our actual warships. War Minister Garrett Holt tried to speak, but his voice failed him. Each of the ships in the fleet was far larger than anything the Zanari had ever constructed, and their designs were unlike anything they had seen before. The mining ships, the guerrilla tactics, the infiltration, that was just courtesy, Olivia Ashford continued. We wanted to give you a chance to back down without revealing our true capabilities. But since you insisted, one of the massive ships opened up, revealing what looked like a tear in space itself. This is a Class 4 reality engine, Olivia Ashford explained. It doesn't just bend space, it rewrites it. Would you like a demonstration? Before anyone could respond, she signaled off-screen. The tear in space pulsed once, and suddenly the Zanari Empire's most heavily fortified military base simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased, like it had never been there at all. 300 years ago, Olivia Ashford continued as if telling a story, humanity discovered something fascinating. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagined, it's stranger than we could imagine. So we stopped imagining. We started breaking things. Another ship moved forward, this one made of liquid metal that constantly shifted and flowed. Quantum entangled smart matter, Olivia Ashford explained. The entire ship thinks, feels, adapts. Your weapons won't just miss. They'll miss because the laws of physics themselves will refuse to let you hit it. Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone found his voice, but it came out hoarse. Why show us this now? Why not just destroy us? Because destruction is easy, Olivia Ashford replied, her tone unwavering. Any species can figure out how to break things. We learned something far more important, how to fix them. The hologram shifted again, showing Earth, but not the Earth they had tried to invade. This version was surrounded by massive rings of what appeared to be crystalline structures, each pulsing with unimaginable energy. Look familiar? Olivia Ashford asked. They should. They're Zanarian design, or rather, they're what Zanari technology could have been if you hadn't let corruption and militarism stunt. We didn't just study your weaknesses, we studied your potential. Evelyn Winters' cybernetic eye analyzed the data with precision. All those technological breakthroughs of the past century, she continued, her voice measured, those were breadcrumbs we deliberately left behind for you to follow. Olivia Ashford nodded in agreement. Exactly. Unfortunately, your leadership chose to use each advancement to build more powerful weapons rather than improve lives. A new ship appeared, and this one made even the reality engine seem basic in comparison. It seemed to be constructed from shifting strands of pure light, each one twisting in forms that almost seemed painful to observe. This, Olivia Ashford said, her voice filled with pride, is the U.S. second chance. It doesn't destroy, it transforms. One single shot can rewrite the very quantum structure of matter. We could turn your entire battle fleet into flourishing garden worlds, or convert your weapons into medical facilities. The choice is yours, as it always has been. The council members exchanged glances, feeling the weight of their empire's fate pressing down on them. They had once believed they were the dominant force in the galaxy, only to discover they were students who had failed every test. The real question, Olivia Ashford continued, was never whether humanity could defeat you. The question is whether you'll learn from the experience. Your empire now stands at a crossroads. You can accept our assistance in reforming your society and reaching your true potential. Or, she let the threat linger unspoken, as the reality engine pulsed again, wiping out another military installation from existence. Those are our conditions, Olivia Ashford concluded, her voice unwavering. Full disclosure of all corruption, complete demilitarization, and the acceptance of human advisors to guide your reconstruction. In return, we'll show you what your species is capable of when it stops trying to dominate and starts trying to grow. Supreme Commander Liam Blackstone stood, his scales shifting to a deep blue as realization struck him. You could have done this at any time. The infiltrators, the psychological warfare, the gradual reveals of power. This was all a lesson, wasn't it? Yes, Olivia Ashford answered without hesitation. We find that species learn best when they come to their own understanding. Well, most species do. Some, however, require a more direct approach. The council chamber returned to its usual state, but now everything had changed. They hadn't simply lost a war. They had been enrolled in the galaxy's most exclusive school, with humanity as the instructors, and class had just begun. 10 cycles later, High Admiral Damian Thorne stood on the observation deck of the ZS Cooperation, watching Earth's shimmering crystalline rings dance in the starlight. The ship, like everything in the newly reformed Zanari Empire, was a testament to their transformation under human guidance. It's still hard to wrap my mind around it, isn't it? Evelyn Winters appeared beside him, her new organic eye indistinguishable from her original. Human medical technology had rendered mechanical augmentation obsolete. Or that we once thought they were primitive, Damian Thorne chuckled lightly. Or that our greatest defeat led to our greatest leap forward, Evelyn Winters added, looking at the deck's quantum displays, which showed real-time updates from across Zanari space. Worlds that had once been stripped for military resources now teemed with life. Research stations had replaced weapon platforms. The Empire hadn't just endured, it had evolved. You know what the humans told me yesterday? Evelyn Winters asked, pulling up a holographic report. They never actually had millions of ships. Most of the reality-bending vessels, holograms. They could have defeated us with their mining fleet alone. Damian Thorne nodded, unsurprised. The real weapon wasn't their technology. It was their understanding of us, of themselves, and how to win without destruction. A small human ship zipped past the viewport, its quantum-entangled hull gleaming. Admiral Olivia Ashford's words from 10 cycles ago echoed in Damian Thorne's mind. The greatest victory isn't one that defeats your enemy. It's one that makes them realize they never needed to be your enemy in the first place. Funny, isn't it? Evelyn Winters mused. That first message they sent us. Since you chose war, let us show you how it's done. We thought it was a threat of destruction. Instead, they taught us that true warfare isn't about breaking things. Damian Thorne finished her thought. It's about breaking paradigms. The observation deck was bathed in light as Earth's defense rings activated for their daily systems check, transforming the space around them into a dazzling spectacle of controlled power, a power that humanity had taught them to use, not for conquest, but for creation. The greatest horror of war, Damian Thorne said softly, isn't losing to your enemy. It's realizing that they had to become your enemy in order to save you from yourself. The stars twinkled in silent agreement as the once mighty Zanari Empire continued its journey, not as conquerors, but as students of a species that had perfected the art of victory without destruction. Somewhere on Earth, Admiral Olivia Ashford was likely smiling, preparing the next lesson for the next species in need of enlightenment. Sometimes the most powerful weapon of all is the willingness to teach rather than destroy.